Welcome to A Bit Much with Tyler Clausen, TW Clausen. This is going to be the first episode in basically a podcast where it's basically taking the place of a newsletter. Because to be honest, I hate writing a newsletter. It is the most tedious thing I've ever done. And I've written books. So... No, seriously though, I did a couple of months of writing a newsletter, and then I forgot to do one, and then I started doing it again, and then I just stopped, because if I'm gonna write, I'm just gonna write a book or a short story or something that I really enjoy writing. Oh, my phone's going off. Nobody knows I'm recording this, by the way, so. Yeah, first episode, just thought I'd do a introduction to what the show's going to be. Try and set a tone with becoming an author and trying to get people to go to my website and follow me and stuff. You have to provide the newsletter so that they have something to follow along with, something that they can reference every month. But I don't like writing. I mean, I do like writing. I like writing my stuff. But the newsletter is just, again, it's tedious. You have to be quippy. You have to, get a lot of information packed into a small amount of time. Because who's going to open up an email with a newsletter that's, 10,000 words long and be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to read this email from this rando that I signed up for a newsletter 3 months ago and at a festival, and now he's sending me entire books worth of information that I don't care about. So instead, I thought I'd talk into a microphone and record my voice so that you can listen to the information that you don't need to know. That way, you can get something done, right? I'm trying to be efficient here. I'm trying to help you out. I want you to be able to. I want you to be able to do the dishes while you're learning about my journey in life. So it's gonna be like that. I sound like it's gonna be like that. Yeah, it's gonna be like that. Do the dishes, garden, vacuum. Maybe don't vacuum. That's a little loud. Do some art. I know there's some artists out there. Listen to my voice. I'm gonna talk about some shit. Some stuff. Damn, I'm trying to not curse as much. I got a lot to go over. First of all, I did want to say that part of doing this this podcast newsletter thing, a bit much, is it's also going to be like a journaling thing. Again, I don't like to write. Journaling is boring. I like to talk about the stuff I go through. I don't like to write about it as much unless I'm putting it into a story that I can maybe sell. But that's never happened. I've never sold a story before. So nobody likes it when I journal, including me. So I'm not going to do that. But I can podcast and kind of talk about what I'm going through at this time. So we can experience that together, and maybe, but again, a part of this is, I became a dad earlier this year, and you start to think about, ironically, when you have a child, when birth happens in your life, you start to think about death a lot. The death of your child, which is terrifying and keeps you up at night. The death of yourself, which is less terrifying and, but still not great, because you don't want to abandon your child. The death of your spouse or whoever you're, having a kid with, because then it's all on you. They get this nice vacation of death and you're left with the kid. So ironically, you think about death a lot, or at least I do. Maybe I'm the weird one, but I definitely thought about death a lot more once my son was born, and so I kind of wanted this to be something where, like, man, if I died, how would my son get to know me? And I do a caricature for Lewis and Lovecraft, which is another show, a podcast that I do where we talk about books and authors and stuff. And I mean, that's a part of me, definitely, but it's not always the real me. It's sometimes it's something that I'm putting on to try and get more listens, to make it a more fantastic show, but also to like experiment and see if that's who I want to be a little bit. So it's not always the real me. It's not always who I am at the moment. Maybe it's who I want to be or want to try out. So if you go and listen to that, you know, Alistair, my son, and if I have another kid, at this moment I do not, but eventually I might. You know, you can listen to that, but know that's not always who I was at that time. It was me trying to be something else, trying to fit in, trying to be better, I guess, than who I am, and where that allows some freedom, it also it's inauthentic a little bit. So this could be a journaling sort of format that I can come to and, you know, talk about the stuff I'm dealing with in my writing and creative life, talk about some stuff that I'm dealing with in my work life, and, you know, because it all comes down to what I spend my time doing. And so that's that. Those are the two big things, you know, newsletter and journaling, and you know, maybe I'll get some friends on the show and talk to them a little bit and just kind of have a little bit more of a tight-knit rotation on that, you know, something that people can enjoy listening to, people that are in my life and do affect it in a way that is personal. So it fits with this journaling newsletter thing. People that do influence me as well, and I want to give a big shout out on this right now. You know, I've got some close friends that I've made over the last couple of years. I've as of today is December 21st. And 2022, and I am sitting in a hotel room in Springfield, Oregon, waiting for a snowstorm to get bad enough that my boss will call me and allow me to drive home. So that'll be cool. Until then, I'm stuck in the hotel room waiting so that I can go to work and do some electrical work. Low volt technician, so I deal with electricity, but small amounts of it. I'm not brave enough to deal with the high voltage stuff. And I had a point that I was going to get to. The point that I'm getting to is that as of now, I've been working on the book, The Penny Lich. I've written 6 stories. I've published the first 3, and the second 3 I'm getting ready to publish, probably at the beginning of January, even though my original goal was December. You know, life happens, and you kind of got to roll with it. All of that tangent was to say there are 3 people that I'm dedicating those 3 stories, the next 3, the second bundle of 3 stories to, and it's Paul, Devani, and Brianna. And those 3 are highly influential in my life. They have come alongside me and really helped me become a better person, a better author, a better father, and I can honestly say they are some of my best friends. And so this show wouldn't be happening without their encouragement. So thank you guys for pushing me a little bit and kind of helping me readjust my expectations with trying to do a show, with doing a newsletter and seeing if this works. I also want to give a shout out to Bradley Botts. If you don't know who he has a lot of things. He's an author, he's a podcaster, he's a content creator, TikToker, cosplayer, photographer. He does a lot of different stuff, and I'm really astonished at how much stuff he does. I've got one of his books, and I'm a really big fan of everything that he's trying to accomplish, and I'm really excited to see him get started with a lot of stuff. I think there's a lot of room for him to grow and become really, really good at all of this jazz. You know, I've been podcasting for like 10 years, and I'm just now starting to figure it out. And it's really cool to see someone who wants to just dive in. He's got a podcast where it's called Creator's Dementia. He just talks about different topics and stuff. So this is highly influenced by that, because I was watching him do it, and I thought I could do it better. I'm joking. I mean, I did, but only because I own a podcast studio. But that, I'm not trying to be a dick. I watched his stuff, and I was amazed at how tenacious he was at doing all this. And I was like, he's talking about stuff that I'm very interested in, and I want to do a show where I talk about just stuff. And the stuff I'm usually interested in is the stuff I'm going through and the books I'm writing. So I want to talk about that. So that's what this is. This is influenced by his show, Creator's Dementia. Go check it out. He's also doing a podcast where he plays D&D with some people. So that's going to be coming out soon. I'm excited to see that come out from him. I consider him a friend, and I'm always happy to chat with him, and maybe I'll get him on the show someday. Also, I mean, you guys are going to hear me talk about my wife a lot, and she's great and amazing, and I love her, and she is highly, highly, highly encouraging of everything I do, and, you know, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to do more stuff, and yet not spend less time with her. So it's a challenge, because I genuinely want to be with her at all times, and maybe I can get her to come on and talk with me for a little bit, so that we can spend time together and I can do what I want to do. Maybe I'll get Alistair on the show. I don't know. You know, maybe get my son. He'd probably say like, Dada. That's about it. And then he'd probably like try to walk and bang his head on something, and it wouldn't be great. Did I mention I'm in a hotel room away from my family? Because I'm missing them pretty bad. It's just about Christmas. We're all 3 or 4 days away from Christmas, and I'm not near my family, and it's sad. It's a sad, sad time, and yeah. So, Penny Lich. Let's talk about Penny Lich. I've spent the last year or so, year and a half, I guess now, working on the Penny Lich. It's a fantasy sitcom. It is a short story series. Each story is like an episode in a TV show. You know, self-contained story for each short story, and then over the course of 12 stories, it'll tell one larger one, just like a TV show does. That's my pitch. That's what I tell people at like cons and stuff that I've gone to. And when I say cons, I mean one event that was in my hometown, and it was a book fair that nobody knew about. So I wanted to do something that I hadn't seen accomplished, which was a genuinely funny fantasy story that wasn't slapstick. It's not over the top. It's not trying too hard. There's a lot of fantasy stuff that I've seen where it's like, it's really bad. Like it's over the top in its comedy, like slapstick, like scary movie style comedy, Naked Gun stuff, which, I mean, it's a style of humor. It's a style of comedy. And if that's what you like, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just going to think it. But, you know, I wanted a comedy that was like the sitcoms that I was watching. New Girl, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office, Parks and Recreation. Those are my top 4. Community. Oh, man, I can't forget Community. I wanted something that was as funny as those, you know, that was irreverent and witty and over the top in the right ways without being too on the nose with stuff. Character driven. That was a big one. You watch a lot of sitcoms, and I mean, it's all about the characters. That's what makes it funny. And, you know, I remember telling people to watch The Office when it was still pretty new, and I didn't get into it right away. I think I started watching it like right towards the end of the second season. And it takes a bit. It takes a bit to get into that show, and it really becomes good once you get to know the characters a lot more. And it's the same with New Girl. Although those characters in New Girl are pretty good almost in an instant, but they grow as far as characters and they become more than how they're presented at first, which is the case with almost every sitcom. Like Parks and Recreation, Leslie is just basically a female version of Michael Scott in the first couple episodes, and then they start to flesh her out, and then you start to see who she really is once they start to figure it out. And it's funny because as I'm writing the Penny Lich, I'm doing the same thing. I'm starting to learn the characters a little bit more. I came into the preconceived notion of who they're going to be, you know, an idea of what I wanted them to be. And then as I write them, the characters evolve and grow and become bigger. And I really enjoy that process of learning them. The only thing I wish I could enjoy with it is seeing the audience's reaction, or in my case, having an audience to have a reaction, because I think that dictates a lot of character development in shows. You know, people saying like, "Oh, I love this about this character. I love this about so and so." I really wish these two characters would get together and all that, the shipping and headcanon stuff that writers can pull on and create in the show. I don't have that. You know, I'm writing 3 episodes at a time, and then I'm sending it out to a couple of beta readers, hoping to get enough feedback in time that I can publish. And then I publish, hoping that people will read it and talk to me about it so that I can take that information and continue on. That's the hope, at least. I mean, we'll see how that goes. So, you know, I had already had the idea, but then as I started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it started to hit me that this was the format that I wanted for the fantasy sitcom. You know, I didn't want it to just be like Seinfeld in Fantasy World, where you got a few fantasy people, whatever they are, doing nothing. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was really fun because it has a lot of action along with character-driven stories and development and comedy in it. And, you know, you have the set. They're in a police station. They're at work at the police station. Every episode is a different event in that police station that they're doing, whether it's crime or something happening at the station or somebody's mundanity. Mundanity? That's not a word. Madonna. And it was such a cool concept, the cop sitcom. I'm sure it's not a new one, which is fine. That's not the point. The point, obviously, is that it's about these characters. And so when I was thinking about really doing the Penny Lich, I realized that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to have basically cops. So then I'm like, oh, let me do something where they're guards on the watch or something. And then somebody's like, oh, you mean like Terry Pratchett's The Guards series, Guards. So I read that and I was like, oh, well, shoot, darn it. Not only has someone already done Guards, but he also wrote very funny fantasy. But the thing about Terry Pratchett's comedy in his writing is that it's very highbrow, and it's like the opposite problem that I had with the lowbrow slapstick humor of fantasy that I've seen. And it's almost it is the opposite of like, it's like so literary highbrow. You have to come into it knowing so much about fantasy, and you have to understand the jokes that he's writing into it, or else it's not funny. It's just drab and dry, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I love Terry Pratchett's work, but again, that's not what I wanted to write. I wanted to write something that felt modern, something that when you read it, you're reading almost a transcript to a script. Does that make sense? Transcript to a script? It would just be a script, like you're reading a script. It's redundant. Yeah, I need you to take this script and I need you to transcribe it for me. No, don't translate it. I didn't ask you to I just want you to transcribe. Just take the script and transcribe it. Come on. So I wanted it to feel like that. And it took me a while to get that voice down, because I was really struggling with a lot of, like, I also love Arrested Development, and I was playing around with the idea that the narrator is going to be a little bit more involved, to the point where at some point one of the main characters, I believe it was Eric, actually heard the narrator almost in a fourth wall break, and it was kind of his way of telling the story. He was a part of it. And it was a narrator voice in his head. And I wrote a few scenes, and it was kind of funny, but again, it wasn't really the tone I really wanted. It just wasn't there. And then I wrote a scene that was incredibly, how do I say this? Gross, excessive. Basically, one of the main characters, if you haven't read it, you should, obviously. Cecilia, like, tortures a guy. Straight up, first scene, she's just, like, torturing a dude. And I'm like, oh, my God, what have I written? This is terrible. But I was getting closer. It was the thing. Is like, the humor was there, it just wasn't executed correctly. Whoa, maybe not. I shouldn't say executed. Just talking about it, torturing a dude. So we started narrowing it down. Finally, I wrote the first scene of this short story where they're going in to collect a magic item, and the cleric gets his hands chopped off, and he can't heal himself because the spell requires hand movements to cast the spell. And I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was so perfect. It fits my humor. It fits the feel of like having D&D nerds coming alongside and reading this. They'll get that. Fantasy readers will get it for the most part, I'm sure. And even people who don't get into that particularly would still understand, like, the setup is still funny. The guy needs his hands to cast spells, and he gets his hands cut off. So now he can't heal himself. It's still a funny premise. And after I wrote that, I felt like a change inside of my brain, and I started going and studying the jokes of the shows I liked, sitcoms. I started, like, reading about the formula and how to do stuff. I'm still not great at it. There's a lot I don't really comprehend, but I do enjoy the process of learning about it. And so I wrote that scene, and then I wrote the next scene, and then the one after that. No, I wrote the whole thing, and then I realized I needed to change it because it didn't end right. And by changing it, I needed to have repercussions at the end and kind of bring things in a full circle, but move things forward. That's what I had learned from Dan Harmon and the reading about his process and general, sitcom formula stuff, which I think I'll get into at some point, is the sitcom formula and what I utilize from it. So that's when I wrote about 10,000 words, and I was like, yeah, this is good. I like this length. This is a fun length because someone can take an afternoon and read that. I mean, I would take an entire afternoon to read that. Most people probably would take like a lunch break or something. But even then, that's a better thing, right? You buy a book and read it on lunch. That'd be fun. And then I want to do it monthly. I thought, I could do this. I could write 10,000 words in a week. Easy. Editor can edit it, and then got to get it back, and then I'm like, I make my edits, publish it, and it's out every week or every month, one a month. And then in a year, I've got a whole season. And it was a great idea, and to be honest, if I had more time, I could probably do that. But I don't have the time. I have to work full time. I have to work 40 hours a week, feed my family. So I realized, going through July, I had published the first bundle, all 3 stories. I thought that would be the beginning of, I'd do 3 stories and then I'd do 1 story every month after that. And I went through all of July dry. I had nothing. I was tapped. I had no idea what I was going to write. And so I realized at that point, well, this isn't going to work. I'm under so much pressure, and I have to be writing constantly to get these stories done. Not that I'm against writing constantly. I just can't write constantly. I just can't do it. So, talking with Brianna and Paul and Devani, I realized I need to just scale it back, and I'm going to do every 6 months, do 3 story bundles. And in a couple of years, I'll have the season done, which is still fine. The whole purpose of this is to teach me to write, is to practice and find new areas to get better and experiment without fear of failure, right? I can do whatever the fuck I want. I mean, I can do whatever the heck I want. So that's it. That's the story of how I did the Penny Lich. So if you listen to this, I appreciate you. Hopefully I can keep it going, and we'll see where this goes. Again, this took 30 minutes for me to do. It would have taken me 2 hours, 3 hours to get this written down, formatted, figured out, all that jazz. So I appreciate you allowing me to create a podcast out of my newsletter. I hope you'll tell people about it so that they can enjoy the newsletter podcast a bit much with T.W. Clausen. You'll share it. And if you're new, if you don't have any idea what the hell I'm talking about, you can go to my website, twclausen.com. You can check out the books that I've done, the podcasts that I've done, and some other stuff. You can contact me through that website if you want. If you want me to read some mail or talk about a specific subject, you can do that. So, I don't think these episodes need to be very long. So, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this edition, episode 1, December 21st, 2022. Sitting in a hotel room by myself, getting weird with the microphone. I do not want to have ended the episode like that.